Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The question is, why is there evil in the world? Why are there genocides or rapings or killings or these wars? Why is there suffering in the world? Now, this is a difficult question. And to answer this, we may consult with Muslim theologians and philosophers and masters of spirituality. We can see how did they approach this question, this difficult question. Now, we can come up with several answers, actually. One is this: evil must be put in the larger context of existence. Here is how it works. Imagine a beautiful picture, and there are some dark spots in that beautiful picture. And if you only concentrate on those dark spots, you will come up with an idea of darkness, but it's not all dark. Yes, there are some dark spots. And those dark spots actually, if you can see the totality of that picture, may somehow be meaningful in the totality of that picture, in the larger context of that picture. And those dark spots, yes, they are dark, they are real, but they somehow are integrated in the total good. And also, according to our belief, right, we begin everything with Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, in the name of God, the most merciful, the most compassionate. So mercy and compassion, that is the essence of this world. And if God's first word is mercy and compassion, then the last word must be mercy and compassion too. And there are some accidental evil and ugliness and suffering, but somehow we must believe and we must have that trust. All of these things will be integrated, maybe at the end of this whole process, will be integrated into the total good, in the greater good. So this is one aspect, one way of looking at the question. The other way is this, and that was offered by Asharite School of Theology or Maturidite School of Theology, and this is what they say: we must submit to the will of God. God's will is ultimate, and we may not be able to understand everything about that will. We may not be able to access the divine mind, but we must have that trust. We must have that contentment, because God is good. God is all powerful, and we must have that trust to the will of God. We must submit to the will of God. We are quite maybe ruthlessly say that God is the creator of both evil and good, and we mustn't question that, and we must just submit. And this is also a possible way of approaching the question. But some others want to go further and provide an answer, more maybe convincing answers to the question: why is there evil? For example, some actually denies the existence of evil. There is no evil, they say. Pravatio boni, as they say it in Greek. There is no evil, they say. Evil, what we perceive as evil, is actually lack of good. For example, illness is not a real thing. What you perceive as illness is actually lack of health or lesser health. So this is another way of seeing the filled part of the glass. And quite similarly, this is the dominant way of approaching the question among Sufis. And they say this world is a mirror in which God's beautiful name as well as God's majestic names are reflected. This world is that mirror, and these names must be reflected on this mirror. So God's beautiful names, right? They are reflected. So God is the creator of a mother's heart. That's really beautiful. But God is also the creator of other rigorous stuff, such as tsunamis or such as galaxies. So God is the creator of both. And the world is oscillating between God's majesty and God's beauty. And we must just accept that. We must just, be content with the reflections, with the manifestations of God's beautiful names as well as God's majestic names. And so long as we know that they're coming from the good, morally perfect, and absolutely beautiful God, then we should be content with all the manifestations, or tajalliyat, as they say it, of the names. And from another perspective, people like Al-Ghazali or Ibn Arabi, they argue that evil is necessary. Actually, evil cannot not be. That's also another way of looking at the issue. Evil is like necessary shadow of the existence. Evil has to be. It plays roles, but and this is how they explain it. It's quite philosophical, metaphysical. It is a deep discussion, but to put it in a very, maybe, I will try to simplify it as much as I can. And this is what they say. If God is infinite, there must be manifestation, because to say the infinite is to say all possibilities. So these possibilities must be manifested. And this manifestation, however, means or implies a distance between the source of manifestation and manifestation itself. And that distance also implies imperfection, because nothing can be like God. So the world is created, yes, and the world cannot be like God. And that is to say, the world cannot be perfect. Imperfection is logically necessary in the world. That imperfection, we perceive it as evil. And imperfection is logical necessity. That's what they're trying to say. Actually, you can draw the same meaning from La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah means there is no God but God. There is nothing like God. So if the world is created, the world cannot be perfect, because there's only one perfect. That is God. The world must be, and logically must be, imperfect. That's an impossibility that the world will be perfect. So they also say that evil is a logical necessity. It's a metaphysical necessity. It's like metaphysically necessary shadow of the act of creation or the act of manifestation. I know it is quite deep. You may not be able to access it when you first hear it, but when you think about it, it's actually quite profound. So this is another aspect of, this is another way of approaching the question. From another perspective, they also make a distinction between God's allowing and willing evil. So God's allow the existence of evil for the greater good, and there are some purposes, right? And now evil plays a role in this way or another, but it plays a role. It exists for the greater good, but God does not will it. So they make this distinction between God's allowance and God willing. God do not will evil, but allows the emergence of evil as a side effect of, or as a side effect of existence, one can say, for greater good, because evil cannot not be as I say it. From another perspective, evil is a test. Evil is a trial. That trial distinguishes the good from the bad. So it is a process of purification. So evil exists as a test. This is actually one of the main themes, or main aspect, or main function of the existence of evil in the world that is given to us in the Quran. Evil is a test, a trial, a tribulation, and that differentiates us. This actually, it is there to actualize that hidden potential within us. That's what makes us us. So evil is that thing that helps us to realize that hidden potential within us, that's God-given potential. So from another perspective, evil has this relationship with human freedom. If human beings are free, hence evil. Evil must be, because we are free. To say that human beings must be free and there must be no evil in the world is a logical contradiction again. So since we are free, and that is the most fundamental divine project, that we must be free and we must freely obey God, we must freely love God, we must freely know God, and hence evil must exist, because human freedom will sometimes will mean that the human beings will make bad choices, and we will witness the consequences of those bad choices as we are doing every day. That's another way of explaining the existence of evil. And let me give you another thing. Evil also, they say, must be looked at from this the perspective of logic. Now, from one perspective, things might look ugly, but if you think about it from another perspective, the things may look good. So, or maybe temporarily ugly, but in the long run, things may turn out to be good. So let me give you an example. That garbage heap is ugly maybe to you, But that's a heaven for a cockroach. So God is creating for all creation. It's not only for you. So if you place yourself at the center of the world and judge everything from that perspective, that is quite delusional. So one must elevate himself to that higher perspective and see things from that perspective. Maybe something that may look ugly to me or evilish to me may be good from another perspective. That's also quite important to understand the function of evil in this world. And I will finish with this. I believe the best explanation for the existence of, or the best attitude towards the existence of evil in the world was provided by the Prophet himself, peace be upon him. He lost one of his friends and he wept. And his companions wondered, why are you weeping? After all, this is God's decree and we must take it with content. But he answered, and he gave this profound answer. He said, the eye cries, and this heart aches because it hurts. But the tongue does not say anything that will displease God. Here you see it as. He sees the reality of evil. Yes, it hurts. But he also tells us that it hurts in the heart and it hurts. You cry. It hurts. But he also tells us the tongue does not say anything that will displease God. Here you see the appreciation of the existence of evil. It's not an illusion. It exists. But at the same time, we believe in a merciful and a good God. And if you believe, you must also believe that this apparent contradiction will be integrated into the higher good sooner or later. And that trust is the best answer. We may not be able to understand all aspects of the existence of evil. We may not be able to answer all questions. But we do know this at least. God is merciful, God is compassionate. And God is wise, and whatever God does must have some purpose, although we may not be able to access to that purpose, that wisdom behind it. But we must believe that God is wise and God is merciful, and hence we must have this existential optimism and trust, and because that's going to provide the light, even in the darkest situations. Thank you.